very interesting speech and presentation to give us tonight, and very much looking forward to seeing what's in it, Andrew. So without any further ado, we'll invite Andrew to the podium and see how we go. You want the microphone?
Thank you, Rex, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your invitation this evening. This was to have been an after-dinner talk, which therefore I felt would give me far greater licence, because you can hardly take the dinner back after I've eaten it. I trust that I will be able to remain. Notwithstanding what I want to discuss with you. The good book has a prophet in it called Isaiah, and Isaiah says, "Come, let us reason together." I thought that's probably a good start for a speech. Come, let us reason together. What can lawyers learn from metallurgists, geologists and engineers? And what can engineers, metallurgists and geologists learn from lawyers? Let's kick some things around. What can lawyers learn from engineers and metallurgists and geologists? One thing that we can certainly learn as lawyers is the issue of proportionality. Engineers know how to get the most from the least. We as lawyers know nothing of that. We're quite happy to spend thousands and tens of thousands of clients' money in order to chase $100, because there's an important legal principle involved and it needs to be properly addressed. Engineers, I think, could teach us how to perhaps curb that sense of disproportionality. Another thing that we as lawyers can learn from engineers is project management skills. How to identify key goals, work out critical paths, identify the required resources, deploy those resources in the most productive fashion, and then know when to stop. Certainly something that the legal profession is not known for. So there's two things, definitely, that lawyers can learn from the engineering profession generally. Sadly, I couldn't think of anything else. However, what can you learn from lawyers? And there goes the rest of the speech. The first thing, engineers, metallurgists, and whatever one I've missed this evening, need to learn from lawyers is a far greater sense of dignity, of steadiness, of reasonable pace, not being so rushed, allowing the matter to take its natural course. We as lawyers excel at such things. Let me give you some examples. In a decision involving a Mr. Shiv Pujan Rai and his co-conspirators in India, they were arrested in December 2003 for some cannabis, some minor infraction involving 70 kilos of cannabis. The matter came before the court on 62 occasions. On 13 of those, the judge wasn't in for the day, so they had to be adjourned. And in due course, it was dealt with. Mr. Shiv Pujan Rai spent 4 years in jail before it was decided he didn't have to face the charges after all. That's a sense of dignity and solemnity. It adds occasion to the whole legal process. Even our own High Court has recently ruled that a delay of 10 years, during which some critical evidence went missing, should be no reason at all why a case shouldn't proceed. You might want to learn something from that. Speak plain English is another thing you can learn from lawyers. I hear a cynical laugh, I should ignore it. Let me give you some examples. I trust that the speaker who spoke at the convention that this organisation held in Cobar 2 years ago may not be present, and that you may not recognise his words, because this is the extract of his paper. This is plain English, I suppose. Geochemical dispersion halos around these deposits and the vectoring potential they provide reflect a combination of element patterns related to primary hydrothermal wall rock alteration, mostly of major elements, and the varying weathering overprint on the primary pattern and dispersion of all elements following sulfide destruction. Do you feel more informed? I don't. If that author is there, I'm sorry, but you had it coming. Let me give you an example. Lord Justice Denning, a very famous English judge, was a remarkable person in expressing English. It was quite a complex case that he had to decide, involving a bank who had pretty well raped and gutted a little old man. These are the opening words of Lord Justice Denning's judgment. Broad Chalk is one of the most pleasing villages in England. Old Herbert Bundy, a little old man, was a farmer there. His home was at Yew Tree Farm. It went back for 300 years. His family had been there for generations. It was his only asset. But he did a very foolish thing. He mortgaged it to the bank, up to the very hilt, not to borrow money for himself, but for the sake of his son. Now the bank has come down on him. They have foreclosed. They want to get him out of Yew Tree Farm and to sell it. They have brought this action against him for possession. Going out means ruin for him. At the trial, his plight was plain. The judge was sorry for him. He said he was a poor old gentleman. He was so obviously incapacitated that he had a heart attack in the witness box. Tell me, is anybody uncertain about who won? And we haven't expressed a word of the law yet. An example of plain English. So I would suggest that you, as a profession, might want to consider more creative ways of expressing yourselves. And instead of geochemical dispersion halos, etc., try some of these phrases that you might want to use. For example, an extensive report is being prepared on a fresh approach to the problem. English translation, we just hired 3 new graduates who might have some idea. Or you could use this one, close project coordination. We know who to blame. Preliminary operational tests were inconclusive. The damn thing blew up when we turned it on. Tests were extremely gratifying. We were surprised the stupid thing worked. The entire concept will have to be abandoned. The only person who understood it has now quit. Please note and initial. Let's spread responsibility for this stuff up. Rugged, too heavy to lift. Lightweight, lighter than rugged. Years of development, one finally worked. A number of different approaches have been tried. We are still pissing in the wind. Have a sense of humour in your profession. Practice eccentricity. I went looking for good engineering jokes. Very few. I went looking for good geology jokes, even less. I went looking for good metallurgical jokes. You are kidding. The best I could find was for engineers. Try these. Real engineers. Some definitions of real engineers. They consider themselves well dressed if their socks match. They buy their spouses matched screwdriver sets for their anniversary. They have a non-technical vocabulary of 800 words. They know the second law of thermodynamics, but not their shirt size. We'll tell you that it is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius, 298 degrees Kelvin, when all you've said is, isn't it a nice day? They give you the feeling that you are having a conversation with a dial tone. They wear badges so they don't forget who they are. They know their ABCs of infrared from A to B. Their briefcase contains a Phillip head screwdriver, a copy of a recent AusIMM manual and half a peanut butter sandwich. They rotate their tyres just for the fun of it. We'll make 4 sets of AutoCAD drawings with 7 revisions before actually starting to build the spice rack. Engineers, metallurgists and geologists have few great characters of historical or eccentric interest. This is a true story. There was a case running in a court, and the case involved a gentleman who had been injured in a motor accident, and he had injured his back. And he happened to be a prize rose grower. And so his barrister was attempting to lead him through the evidence to demonstrate how his injury had incapacitated him. And in particular, this poor old gentleman wasn't able to mulch his roses. Very important task if you're going to grow prized roses. A barrister happened to just wander into the court, and the judge and the barrister didn't seem to get on too well. This was a barrister who wasn't involved in the case. So His Honour just turns to the judge and says, "And tell me, Mr. X, with what do you mulch your roses?" And without hesitation, the barrister replies, "Shredded copies of Your Honour's judgments." The best I could find about engineers was normal people believe that if it isn't broke, don't fix it. engineers believe that if an 8 broke, it hasn't had enough features yet. You have a real image problem in the media. There are no TV or other programs that want to cover engineers or geologists or metallurgists. The best known appearance I can come up with of an engineer in the media is Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott, also known as Scotty, of Star Trek fame. But how's this sound? Shortly before he was contracted, Gene Roddenberry, who is the creator of Star Trek, actually wrote to James Doohan, the actor, and said in his letter, "We don't think we need an engineer in the series." How damning. Otherwise, the only one I can come up with is Larry Hagman's character in I Dream of Jeannie. You remember I Dream of Jeannie? Captain Anthony Nelson. But sadly, even his role as an engineer or whatever it was he was in that role, in that program, he still needed a pretty sexy looking woman to make anybody want to watch the program. Perhaps engineers and geologists want to avoid media. Perhaps you hate risk. You try to eliminate it whenever you can. This is understandable, given that if you stuff up, make one little mistake, the media will jump straight on it and treat it like it was a big deal or something. For example, some media stories that you need to write off somehow. We've got the Hindenburg and the Titanic and Bhopal and Exxon Valdez and the Space Shuttle Challenger and Apollo 13, the Ford Pinto and the OK Teddy mine in Papua New Guinea. Thankfully, we lawyers don't carry anywhere near that burden of explanation. Another area that you need to be paying attention to if you're going to sex up your profession is that you need to get some media programs going. See, we lawyers are lucky. For those whose memory goes back far enough, we have Ironside and Harry Mason, Rumpole of the Bailey, Sea Change, Ally McBeal, LA Law, Crownies, Rake and now Silk. All of them programs about lawyers, demonstrating what a remarkable and wonderful contribution we make to the community. So in summary, there is much that engineers, metallurgists and geologists can and indeed should learn from lawyers. It is good to know that lawyers, being humble, being generous of spirit and being kind, we're all standing by to teach you. We are most grateful, however, that we as lawyers are already so smart, but there's very little we need to learn from you. Thank you for your invitation, your attention, and I hope your hospitality.
Thanks for that, Andrew. I think one thing I can take from that talk is that I'm very pleased that there is now actually a connection between lawyers and geologists. Not quite sure about lawyers and mets or engineers, and that connection is, it would appear that lawyers like to hand shit on engineers as much as geos like to hand shit. So well done, good job.
You need all the help you can get.
Anyway, with that little aside, thanks very much, Andrew. Really appreciate you coming to Cobar again and giving us some words of wisdom. I'd like to move on to a couple of things. Firstly, on your table, you'll see a two-page document. It's a trivia competition, and there is a prize attached to the end of it. Please don't use your mobile phones. If you already have, turn them off. Screw it up, we'll start again. And Tess is the quiz master, and she will collect them later in the evening and award the prize. I think what we might do now is actually move straight on to dinner. So if I could ask one table at a time to go through the doors to the buffet, collecting plates and food on your way, and then slowly move through, if that would be good. If we could start, who'd like to go first? No one wants to go first. Perfect. If we could start with this table over here. And we'll just move gently through the room. There'll be plenty of time, plenty of food. And we'll be back in about half an hour for dinners.
So I've done 22 minutes.